Good evening, friends. On behalf of Silhouette magazine, I warmly welcome our esteemed guests tonight and all our viewers who have tuned in to our program. The occasion, as we all know, is the virtual book launch of Amitava Nag's latest book, The Cinema of Tapan Sinha, an introduction. The book has been published by Om Books International. The book launch gives us the opportunity to discuss, explore, and celebrate the life and works of one of India's best known filmmakers, Tapan Sinha. Before we begin the discussion, which is more of an informal Adda, let me introduce our guests tonight. Siddhartha Ghosh. He is an educator, writer, creative translator. He is a retired Chief General Manager of Coal India Limited. He is the nephew of Sri Tapan Sinha. Shantanu Ray Chaudhuri, he is a film buff and editor who has commissioned and published a number of books on cinema, which have won the National Award for Best Book on Cinema and have been bestsellers. In 2017, he won the Editor of the Year Award, instituted by the apex publishing body Publishing Next. He is also a published author himself. Amitava Nag, he is an independent film critic and editor of the film magazine Silhouette since 2001. He has written books on cinema as well as fiction and poetry in both English and Bengali. Ajay Mago ji, we are expecting him any moment. He is the owner and publisher of Om Books International. He might join us later in the program. And I am Antara, consulting editor, Silhouette magazine. So, a warm welcome to everyone.
Thank you, Antara.
Thank you.
Amitav, let me begin the discussion with you. Why this book? You haven't written any typical biography as such so far. Beyond Opu is understanding Soumitra Chatterjee through 20 handpicked films. Murmurs is a more of a personal look at Soumitra Babu. But the Cinema of Tapan Sinha, an introduction brought out by Om Books, can easily fall in the genre of biographies, although you have titled it an introduction. Tell us about it, the thought, the challenges, the journey, and the destination.
Thank you, Antara, and thank you for organizing this program. Just on a lighter note, so that we don't become very serious, someone asked me that why this book is called an introduction. I said the remaining chapters haven't been written yet. So, in that note, what I can say that it's probably not a very formal biography the way we understand. In the sense that there are aspects of him as a human being which affects him as a filmmaker. At least I wanted to look at it from that perspective. Apart from that, the finer details about the human as such probably aren't here that much. So when I apart from the Murmurs and the Beyond Opu, there were two,
The
three other books.
Satyajit Ray book also. The Satyajit Ray book was there.
Yes, the Satyajit Ray book was there. But first, I will take this opportunity to thank Shantanu. He was the editor of my Beyond Opu, which is so-called my second book on cinema, but nonetheless very important book for me. And I got a chance to work with him again, and probably we will be in future as well. So this book, at the time of Satyajit Ray's book and also Soumitra Babu's book, the main thing which I found out among my friends who are film critics and film critics from different parts of the country, that there has been very minimal interest in the Bengali filmmakers or film actors, apart from, say, if it's filmmakers, it is apart from Ray, Sen, and Ghatak. So I found that most of my film critic friends who are national award-winning film critics as well, they only talk about these three. I found out Tapan Sinha as a very important filmmaker, not only in Bengali cinema, but also in the context of Indian cinema, because he has a very distinct position, and we can discuss in today's discussion if time permits. He holds a very distinct position amongst all the different types of filmmakers which we normally talk about. Like in Bengali cinema, he is different. His positioning is different from probably Ray Sen and Ghatak, but his positioning is also different from Ashit Sen, Ajay Mago, and Torun Majumdar. I think in Hindi cinema also, I found that he has no parallel as such. Like he probably is some way between Bimal Roy and Rishikesh Mukherjee, if I may say like that. So he's very unique and yet so less discussed, not only in the pan-Indian audience but also within the Bangla-speaking readership. For the last 20-25 years, there is hardly anyone who speaks about Tapan Sinha as such in a more serious way. So I think that is why I got interested in writing books. I do write books on Bengali film personalities in English so that people can read outside the local language.
Yeah, thanks, Amitava, and we'll come back to those aspects as we discuss, as we go on with the discussion. As always, like it's good to associate with you again. Soumitra Chatterjee's book was a sort of the first time anybody in the national on the national stage had written a book, or Soumitra Chatterjee himself had come forward with these 20 characters that he wanted to talk about, and I'm sure we'll have other projects to work on. But I'm extremely privileged. Antara, thank you for conducting this, and more so for bringing Siddhartha onto this forum, because you see, for me, I haven't had the fortune to meet Tapan Sinha or go anywhere near, but with Siddhartha, who is a nephew, it's almost 2 degrees of separation, just 2 degrees of separation with a master director. So I'll just begin with him on a short note and then come back to you, Amitava. And Antara, please feel free if there's anything you would like to ask of Siddhartha. Amitava, similarly, don't wait for me. Siddhartha, one of the things that I really wanted to find out, and as Amitava also said, that this probably does not have, because he was not uh, uh, aware of the personal aspects of the filmmaker so much, and he wasn't around. Tapan Sinha wasn't around when Amitava was doing the book on that. So, could you just bring in aspects of that personal life? Is whatever you may have heard of growing up. On our barite, like that, the kind of atmosphere you grew up in, and how that shaped the filmmaker in Tapan Sinha.
You see, you have to look at him from various angles. That is, Mr. Sinha, as a filmmaker, comes much later. When he came as a little boy to Bhagalpur, that is my mother's place, and left Bhagalpur when I was maybe 3 years old. But he kept on coming back to my mother during the time when he was in youth theatres, and when he wanted to do the Onkush, he came to my mother and went to several places. I did not know why he went. Like he went to Sonpur Fair to look at elephant. I remember that as a child. And then I have seen him as a sound engineer, in a sense. My mother will take me along with me, go and watch the film, and his name appears, and that much. Then she will come back, I will also come back, not watching the film. That is the involvement. And when he started doing Onkush, that was a very unique time and a difficult time. Why difficult time? Doing a film like that when Uttam Kumar and Suchitra Sen was at the peak, and then he is trying to do something, everybody was talking in the press everywhere, that Ankush, it is about an elephant and etc. etc. But surprisingly, what happened that I vividly remember, and that it was removed from the hall suddenly. Nobody knew why. And there was a disaster. Why disaster? It is not like today. If you are not able, if the film doesn't run for quite some time, uh, and there's a loss, don't get a financer. Then he came for uh, a sort of a very light film. And then Upahar. Upahar was a break. We took them having worked in that. That is a deciding factor in his life, what I saw. Then came Kauliwala. Kauliwala came just like that because Asit Babu came with the proposal. I was there. Actually, that's the time when I just did my school final exam and came to view with my maternal grandmother. So I know, then it is a wonderful thing happened. After the release of Kabliwala, you cannot think of what kind of thing happened. Entire India, not only Bengal, east, west, north, south, everywhere, the people were talking about him. And then in the Berlin Film Festival, when he came back with the Best Music Award, then there was a very huge, big profile of him in the newspaper. Simultaneously, Satyajit Babu came with from Venice. And that was a very nice, very good year for Bengali film industry and Indian film industry. After that, he didn't have to look back.
Yes, yes.
After that, he didn't have to look back. I know from intimate. Even the producer will come and say, you do my film after 5 years. But you agree. I know that. But he never did that. But he had no problem with the finance. Anytime, any film, people were ready to invest on him.
Thank
That
you.
is the difference between other filmmakers and Tapan Sinha.
I'll
The
come back.
trust.
I'll come back to certain aspects of his of that period. Just before he started
Yeah.
making films, the kind of person he was. Amitava, bringing you into the thing as a filmmaker, he operated at a time when there were no pygmies, so to all of them were giants in their own way. So
Yeah.
what do you think in your in your research about his work, that distinguishes him or places him, like that carves a special place for him, like you had Ray Ghatak Sen, you had as you mentioned Ajay Kaur, Osit Sen, and Tarun Majumdar, and and here was a
No,
filmmaker who
sorry.
wasn't making films with.
Before Amitabh comes in, let me tell you one thing, which I believe because I have watched two master filmmakers, the Satyajit Ray and Tapan Sinha. My age, as you can imagine, we have seen the entire career of both and saw each film directed by them. The credit of Tapan Sinha is that he did same or perhaps more number of films than Ray and shared the prize at the national level. Alternate year, if you look, I have the data,
Yeah.
some prize, either he gets or Ray gets. Of course, Ray had got more number of prizes, but Tapan Sinha has also got. So, operating at the time, it is like, in cricket, if you are playing with a very good batsman and you are also trying to play, and he is the benchmark as in the eyes of the people who are watching. But the audience loved both of them.
Yes.
And I would not like to bring Ghatak and Minal Sen because Minal Sen had a problem with the financer and running the film. And Ghatak was extraordinarily different person. He created the things. He never bothered about what happens to the film, except authenticity, of course.
So what, Amitava, what distinguishes him? Like what do you think in your study as a critic and as a lover of his films that sort of makes you feel that, you know, this is a filmmaker who needs, who actually uh, deserves to be learnt of more in this generation, in this age?
See, Shantanu, this is a fantastic question because whoever appeals to me uh, personally as a human being or as a celebrity or as a creative person, most of the times I find how they have aged with time. And that is true for when I work with Soumitra Chatterjee. And so, like, it is not that you will remain young with your ideas, which are also relatively young throughout 50 years or 60 years or 30, 40 years or so. So it is very important to understand for any creative person how that person matures over the age. Now, if you look at the filmmakers with whom we are on whom we are discussing, a number of them, also it is a problem more for actors, that you will find that they find it very difficult to graduate to the next level. So they want a different type of films to be made all the time, or they want to have a different the same type of film to be made all the time, or a same image which they try to harp on. One of the greatest things about Tapan Sinha, what I found is that he started off as a very classical filmmaker, in the sense that his choice of subjects were very classical, from the literature and stuff. But as he went along, and I must say that probably more than anyone else in the Bengali film industry, for that matter, for sure, he changed his uh, point of view, I may say. Like, say, for example, he made this classical phase, and if we have a comparison with Satyajit Ray, because that is the easiest to make. So, both had a very classical phase. And then both had that Calcutta trilogy part, which is at the end of the 60s and early 70s. And we only give credits to two Calcutta trilogies, one by Sen and one by Ray. But we also need to make sure that there is another Calcutta trilogy made by Tapan Sinha with Aponjon, Akhoni, and Raja. But what is very important is, in the 80s, if you look at Satyajit Ray, he went back to Ghore Baire. And then he made Ganashotru after 5 years. So it was Hirok Rajar Deshe in 80, 84 Ghore Baire, and then 89 Ganashotru. Whereas Tapan Sinha is almost like taking a new stance. And he made Atonko, he made Adalote Ekti Meye, and he made Antardhan. These stunts we always see, like if you look at Sachin Tendulkar, he could prolong his career and make himself useful, because I am taking Siddhartha Babu's analogy from cricket.
Cricket.
He made himself useful because he wanted to play long and also contribute to the team's cause. Tapan Sinha also changed his stance. It was no more a Khudito Pashan which you can expect when he was making Atonku. The filmmaking style changed. He could improvise, and he could change with the times, which I think is one signature which will make him unique amongst many others.
And the fact is that he made, at the time he started making films, and for the longest time he made films without the crutch of the Uttam Suchitra,
Yes,
you know, like that's, I think, a very important aspect of his career, that we tend to overlook, don't we?
yes, absolutely. Because he never in none of his films there was Suchitra Sen, and so but obviously there couldn't be a Suchitra Sen Uttam Kumar pairing in any of his films. He had Uttam Kumar in a few, like Upahar, which was mentioned, which was one of the biggest hits in his career in the initial days. But then there was Jotu Griho and Jinder Bondi and stuff. But he, like Satyajit Ray again, he got so many new faces into the. See, one of the things which I think we once discussed, that if you look at Bengali cinema now, when did you last find a director who was casting someone new in his film, a new hero or a new heroine? Like Satyajit Ray did it, and so did Tapan Sinha, and he brought a number of actors from the theater, including Ravi Ghosh, Ajitesh Bandyopadhyay, and Chinmoy Rai. So these are the things which go unnoticed, but it also shows the mastery of the filmmaker in the sense that he has supreme confidence on himself that, okay, I can get someone from a different stream, or I can get a completely newcomer, but can still make him or her act alongside a Chhaya Devi or a Chobi Bishwas.
Yeah, that's I think reading your book also made that a very sort of, it was a startling discovery. You don't realize that in this over of 40 odd films, there are just a couple, two or three of uh, Uttam Kumar, of course, one of Uttam Kumar's best in Jotu Griho, and
Yes.
even the Jinder Bondi, though it's it's Soumitra Chatterjee who is taking away all the sort of accolades even as the antagonist. Uttam Kumar had a very strong role there, but otherwise it's a oeuvre that's devoid of and Soumitra Chatterjee, one talks of Satyajit Ray, but some of his finest roles, if apart from Satyajit Ray's, have come from Tapan Sinha, like the
Oh, sure. Yes.
Khodito Pashan
And say Jinder Bondi is one of the biggest examples in the sense that I think I was not there around, but I think that people took a note of Soumitra Chatterjee only after Jinder Bondi in that sense that he can act in so many different roles or different types of roles. Previously, it was more or less the similar Tagorian character,
Yes.
which is dreamer and stuff.
As far as Soumitra is concerned, sorry, as far
Yeah,
as
please come
Soumitra
in.
is concerned, if you see in the end when Tapan Sinha started bringing Soumitra again, casting him, the thing like Atonko, wheelchair, these are the things which was not think one could not think that Soumitra can do that such well, and both were accepted by the people. Soumitra's performance. And it was not very easy for Soumitra. I know how the entire shooting were going on and what kind of hardship he has to go. And one thing, Tapan Sinha was a very hard taskmaster. He will tell the actors what to do. Like he gave a wheelchair to Soumitra, he has to practice at home for a month together. So what I'm saying, Soumitra having done the Ray's film in the earlier years, or Kudito Pashan, this we find a completely different Soumitra Chatterjee. And that is I find in Tapan Sinha, and certainly Satyajit Roy, can make the actors do whatever they want.
Yes. Amitava, one very interesting observation that you made, and this is a comment that this is something that Tapan Sinha also mentioned in, if you quote an interview, that he himself said something to the effect that he had never developed a signature style, unlike say, like you mentioned this in the book, that I haven't developed a signature style, and maybe that is the reason for. Would you like to elaborate on that? And that absence of signature style does not seem to restrict him. In fact, the vast array of his subjects, these are two questions basically: this absence of signature style that he himself talks about, and this array of subjects from Tagore to comedy and satire like Bancharamer Bagan and the film with
Golpo
Robbie
Holo
Williams,
Sotti.
Golpo Holo Sotti. Then you have action adventure like Jinder Bondi. You have the children's film, one of the most wonderful creators of children's. We have social critiques, So would you like to talk about this signature style aspect and this diversity of genres?
See, this is probably beyond film in the sense that it is a common debating discourse, like whether a creative person should have, and it's also applicable for painters, like whether you camouflage your signature and style so that no one can understand whether you are Picasso or a Van Gogh, or you should be having something so that even anyone will know that yes, it is, even if the signature is not there, it is Van Gogh. So that is how I think we have approached art most of the time. We expect signatures to be there. And it becomes very difficult because the common human trait and trend is to categorize people. So, say for example, we know, okay, Rabindranath is this. So it may not be one, it may be five, but nonetheless it is not 50. So the moment we can categorize one creative person into few compartments, it becomes easier to talk. So that is probably the crux of this mindset where we always categorize people into different genres or different categories. At the most, what we do, say for example, Picasso is a good example of that we think that that person evolved over a period of time, but nonetheless, between this period and this period, this was his signature, and between this period and this period, this was his signature. Now, Tapan Sinha is a complete antithesis of this, because he was one who always dabbled with different subject matter, and those subject matter were so different that it becomes very difficult to understand that it is exactly the same person. But if you look deeper into it, then we will find that his style remains mostly similar. Even his, even if his stories are different. So if it is shot taking, if you talk about close-ups, you'll find that portraitures, not only between black and white and color, because the technology changed, there were very few. How many close-ups you have seen of Tapan Sinha's film? Not that significant. The way you can remember a Charulata, you will probably not remember a Tapan Sinha close-up. So that is his signature. So when we say that signature is there or signature is not there, we actually, in our heads, are actually thinking of the story. But apart from the story, there are certain other things of the filmmaker. So I think he also has his own. Sorry.
Amitava, I would like to add a little. Actually, Tapan Sinha believes in the variations. Now, if you watch Satyajit's film, the moment music starts, even if you don't know who has done the film, you can know, because he had a style in background music. So you know that it is Satyajit Ray. But in Tapan Sinha, although they started giving the music direction at practically the same time, because Ray requested him that why don't you do? Because Ray felt that we have used the great masters in music, but actually as a director perhaps that's not compatible with what they wanted to do. So he advised him, and he, being a Tapan Sinha, was gifted with music, as I know, and if you look at his music, two different films will have a different style altogether. Not only in the tune, but with the use of instruments also. The instruments he used. So this is what he believed in the variety. And so are the, stories he has been actually dealing with. And if you look at, you just talked about children film, the three children film which he has done, which are very famous, Savedhati, Ajka Robin Hood, Anokha Moti, two of them have got the international award, and third one, Anokha Moti, was a last film which he did, children film. Wonderful. And I have seen the different treatments, different story, all written by him. And I sat in the hall, which was 500, 600 children sitting, and they are enjoying the film together. So that is, he could communicate, and of course, subject matter was, three were completely different. Three gave, I think Amitava has also talked about the values in his book. It reflected three different kind of value system, which he told the children through the story. Not the similar type which one can think of. So that is what I find, and the more I know, you see, last 10, 15 years, I was very close to him, being in Calcutta. I know his mind. He always thought of doing something different. That is within him, different. Now, he also disliked something which he did. Well, I think Amitava has also said in his book, disliked something which he did earlier. He's the only director who said, no, this is not what I like now. Like if you write poetry, and when you are a very good poet and you say early poetry is not my poetry is not good, I'd like to throw it away. So many of his films which he directed earlier, even Bancharam and Bagan, he told me, I think I should not have done this film, although it is so popular.
Just one question, Siddhartha Babu. Why Bancharamer Bagan? Why did he say that? Did you try to find out like why he felt that Bancharamer
No,
Bagan?
why, he told me while we were discussing, we discussed about film. He said it was not right to do that. That's it. You see, the problem with him is, I'm too junior to him. Although I had an access and he extraordinary affection I had, and kind of affection I had, I can talk to him anything I like, and he will listen to me. But he suddenly one day said, "I don't think I should have done this film." That is typical of Tapan Sinha. That although it is so popular, it's so good in the eyes of others, and I know many people enjoy even today. But he felt perhaps that scheme of the thing should have been done, something different. So
A
you have to
couple of things,
understand that.
Siddhartha Babu, a couple of things, if I may interject, I want to add to what Shantanu's original question was, why he remains unique. I think two things which came to my mind when Siddhartha Babu spoke about these children's films. One is children's film, which also Satyajit Ray made, and most of the other directors don't make. Now, it is a problem in today's Bengali literature as well. Like the biggest writers seldom write for children. Now, if you don't write for children, then you don't have future writers. So that is a problem. Similarly, if you don't make films for the children, you probably lose on having future filmmakers who will have a sort of cultural context when they're growing up. So, like
Mm.
Satyajit Ray, I think Tapan Singh also made very significant contribution, again, very unique. Uh, most of the famous filmmakers whom we are talking about did not make children's films, and he made four, I guess. Like Shobuz Dipper Raja is the other one,
Four, yeah.
and so that is one. The other thing, very unique in his early films, right from Ankush, though both Tonsil and Upohar were again not that, but still, that he took the Bengali the camera in the Bengali cinema out of the sets. If you see that most of his early films are all outdoors, like it's Kabuliwala, it's
Yeah,
Ankush.
I'll go back to this because, why? Uh, as he has already written chapters, he is a little boy, 6-year-old. My mother brings him to Bhagalpur, British India city, with all kinds of facility. And all modern world could give the facility, including the education, was there in Bhagalpur city then. Um, so one natural surrounding of a very nice village in Murshidabad, which I love very much going, to another place which is amidst nature. British used to call a town in a jungle. Bishop Weber, when he came from England, and he was amazed to see a town or a city can be within jungle because so many large number of trees and rivers and all this. The same thing attracted Bhutibhushan Bandyopadhyay, who wrote Pasir Panchal in Bhagalpur. He picked up the job not for because bread and butter, because of the natural surrounding. Now, being brought up in a natural surrounding, very rich natural surrounding, that is an impression, lasting impression. His own native village and Bhagalpur, wonderful environment. He studied there and very close to the nature. A small anecdote I'll tell you. When he was doing Boidujo Rahasya, Bhagalpur, in my childhood also, moonlit night was wonderful, in the full moon, wonderful. And in a moonlit night, the corporation used to switch off the light, street light, because it was so much light. You can see the street. Now this, if you look at all his films, you'll find that moonlight is there. And he is actually romanticized that even in a very difficult situation, it has come. So he was closer to the nature. That's why he was more for the outdoor than indoor.
That's an interesting thing. That's a very interesting point to make. And is Ajay joining in? I think he's joining in.
I think he's joining in.
Yeah, so we'll just wait for him. In the meantime, we'll, if Ajay joins in, we'll do the sort of hold up the book at that point of time. And meantime, one of the things that I'd like to talk, and we can, even if Ajay joins in, we'll continue with that as the last couple of questions. I don't think we have too much time now. Is the fact that here is a filmmaker who did not restrict himself to the Bengali industry. He went ahead and made films. Not only did he make films in Hindi, he also made the wonderfully visionary decision to cast top Hindi actors. Vaijanti Mala in Hate Bajare, Dilip Kumar in Sagina, even the original work of it. So, and
Ashok
then
Kumar.
of course, Ashok Kumar, of course, in Hate Bajare again, and of course, Ajay, there you are.
So welcome, sir.
Hi, how are you doing? I'm sorry, I'm a bit late. I was just in the other meeting. Hi, Shantanu. Hi, Siddhartha. How are you guys?
Let
Hello.
me just introduce you.
I'm
Antara is hosting the event today for the launch of the book that you have just published, Amitava Ghosh's Tapan Sinha. Yeah, we are waiting for you to do that. We were waiting for all of us are waiting to do that. Amitava,
great.
of course, is the author, and Siddhartha Ghosh is the nephew of Tapan Sinha. None of us have met Tapan Sinha. We haven't had the chance.
So
but,
glad to see you all.
Yeah, so we just
very happy.
And so let's get done. Let's hold the book up. All
of
us.
Exactly. And but thank you for coming to us to Home Books. It's really appreciate that.
That deserves a round of applause. And we absolutely, Amitava, thank you for doing this book. And and Ajay, as I've been telling them that it takes nerve in this day of celebrities and celeb bios to do something, with a filmmaker who hasn't been around for a while and who has been quite sort of forgotten and underrated. Thank you so much. Just give your bites on your experience.
It's an honor, actually. It's really an honor to publish this book.
Just give us your
book,
Shantanu.
Where is your book? Where is your book?
Just give us your insights on how we want, we want the book to do well, and the viewers.
Yes, it's very it's right from the pre-order stage. So we made sure that it's available on the online platform right on time. So that really got us a traffic as well. In terms of sales, we really want to market this book internationally also. In fact, I'm going to Frankfurt Book Fair, so we'll be carrying this book as well to our stand at Frankfurt. So let's see, because there is there's definitely a market for Indian cinema out there as well. So we're hoping that our biggest client, our biggest country where we sell international languages is Turkey and Mexico, and also China. So these are the places where Bollywood and Indian cinema especially is very popular. So we need your support in terms of social media marketing on your handles, and Shantanu is doing quite a few as well. We're using our purposes also at the same time. So hopefully we'll have a great success very soon. Yeah,
Thank you from my
but
end
well
as well
done. It's
for
well
publishing.
written. It's very
Thank
well
you.
written. Thank you. Yeah.
So,
Thank you,
Ajay,
Ajay
now that
ji. Really, I mean, it's a
Thank you.
pleasure having you here. We were
Oh, great. Thank you. No, it's
really
my
glad
pleasure.
that you could join.
Great.
and
Thank you so
like
much. Thank
since
you so much.
Ajay is
Yeah.
here, and just before you came in, Ajay, we were just talking about one aspect of Tapan Sinha's film. We're just coming to an end of the discussion, but just a
Hmm.
last couple of questions. And one of the things that I wanted to discuss was Tapan Sinha and his engagement with Hindi cinema. He was a
Yeah.
Bengali filmmaker, and in
Hmm.
Bengal, making films in Bengali, but he made it popular for Hindi film stars like Vajanti Mala, Ashok Kumar, Dilip Kumar to act in Bengali films. And then he
Hmm.
made films in Hindi as well. Amitava, if you come in here, and he was very popular. His films are very popular among Hindi filmmakers to adapt. From Bawarchi, which is an adaptation of Golpo Holo Shakti, and
Hmm.
almost so many of his films.
Hmm.
मेरे अपने
Apon Mere Apne was Apon Joan
That's
and
a
all of
huge
that.
film. That's a huge success.
इजाजत.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Hmm.
of course,
Hmm.
Lekin and Ijazat very loosely, but again based on his works. So
Hmm.
could you come in on that, Amitava? His penchant for taking uh, Bollywood stars, Hindi film stars, reaching out to make films in Hindi, and the adaptations that his works have had in Hindi. That sort of gives him a very national aura.
Hmm.
Yes, and right now, like in today's day, it is very difficult to understand or apprehend like what Tapan Singho's, as you said, quote unquote, aura was. But if you look at the time, which is the early '60s, like apart from taking Wahida Rahman in Obhijan for Satyajit Ray, none of the other directors had the guts to take the Hindi film, the biggest Hindi film actors in Bengali cinema, and all of them very gladly came to his cinema for the simple reason because they were getting certain roles which probably only Bimal Roy could offer them in Hindi cinema in the 1960s. To pick up any other director, all the Rishikesh Mukherjees and everything happened in the late 60s or early 70s, right? So the 60s is only about the triumvirate of the Hindi cinema in the sense it is Dilip Kumar, Devanand, and Raj Kapoor, right? So those are actors. If you talk about the directors who will cast you in meaningful cinema where you will be getting to show your talent, that happened with these two, three Bengali filmmakers mostly. So I think that was one of the points. And if you look at it, you cannot think of any Bengali actress doing the Vajantimala role. Simply, you cannot think. You cannot think
Hmm.
of any Bengali actor, whoever you can think of, doing Sagina Mahato, which Dilip Kumar could have done. Probably Ashok Kumar's role in Hate Bajar as the doctor, you may think of someone who is an elderly Bengali actor who could have done that. But so it is not just taking someone from the Hindi cinema for the glamour bit. You are casting them in roles where you cannot think of anyone else doing. So when we talked about the casting thing earlier in today's discussion as well, that when he was taking newcomers and he was also taking the biggest stars because he was looking at the roles and who will fit the best. So that was the prime objective. It's not that I will just cast Uttam Kumar for that matter in film after film or whatever it is. So that part shows his commitment towards his craft. His films
Hmm.
become very popular. That is fine. But when he was making a script and he was doing the casting thing, he was not looking at the biggest stars. Then he could have done films with Uttam Kumar and Suchitra Sen all the time. But he never did it. And as I said, like
Hmm.
this Dilip Kumar's and this, probably you can have a question on the Saira Banu thing because I think Saira Banu came as a baggage with Dilip Kumar. But apart from that, Dilip Kumar, I think, no questions. Even within Dilip Kumar's whole career, you pick out one film which is like Sagina Mahat.
Hmm.
There is none,
Interesting.
isn't it? So I think that was later carried on to an extent by Rituparna Ghosh, among the only Bengali directors.
And what could be the reason for his popularity in adaptations, like Rishikesh Mukherjee or Gulzar, time and again going back to his films to adapt, even in the 70s.
I don't know. See, what I always thought about Rishikesh Mukherjee and to an extent the early Gulzar is that they made Hindi films, which are Bengali films in Hindi language. If you look at Rishikesh Mukherjee's films, it is actually a Bengali story.
Hmm.
Almost the get up, the dress, the family structure, many of his films are actually a Bengali story, which happen to be spoken in the Hindi language. So I think that was one which I feel, and also the films which they made, like say Bawarchi, which he made from Golpo Holo Shutti, is a very attractive storyline. And if you look at Rishikesh Mukherjee, I don't know. I think Antara knows more about Rishikesh Mukherjee, so she can say. But I think Rishikesh Mukherjee seldom made films on classics, like the Tagores or the Sharat Chandras and the Bankim Chandras and stuff. The greatness of Tapan Sinha is that he could dabble both the spheres. That is why he could make a Tagore, which probably very few can make. He can also make a contemporary film based on his own story, and also can make it equally appealing. Like Golpolo Shotti is his own story. Like
You see,
Akhoni or
he wrote 10 stories actually, and he made the film on his own writing. And three of them we have just discussed over children film. There are 10 stories. Out of that,
Hmm.
I think six got back the award, national and international award. So uh, I once told him, I asked him, why don't you write? You can write so well and you are such a, he just smiled. He never responded. But what I feel about him, the kind of thing which you are discussing, uh, he will not do touch any story or anything which he think he cannot do. Means when he is thinking of something, that is his idea of that entire thing about the environment, the character, and everything. He can imagine, and he sees in reality. Because I remember one of his assistant director came with a proposal, why don't you make this film which is about the Muslim world, means the family life of the Muslim. And he replied, do you know about how they live? What is the way of life? I don't know. If I don't know, I don't touch it. However good
Hmm.
film good story it could be. So this is he as far as I'm concerned, uh, very reality based. Only one of the things you have been discussing, one thing you never discussed, that why it clicks with the people,
Hmm.
and most of his films got the return, apart from being a very good film, because he could communicate. Only one another person who could communicate well is Satyajit Ray, certainly, for a certain section of the people. But his viewers were very broad based. So his language was that way. Similar language was that he could communicate with them, and they waited for the release of his each film. The viewers in those days, in 60s and 70s, right from mid 50s to 60s, I know in Calcutta, it was like a celebration when Satyajit Ray's film was released or his film was released. Whole, whole Calcutta, the people were waiting for it because of the
On that
communicative.
on that note, just one final question, Antara. Do we have the time?
Yeah, Shantanu, and I wanted to show the look inside of the book if
Please,
possible.
please do that, and
Yeah,
then we'll wrap up. Yeah, we'll wrap up
yeah.
with one final question.
Let me just share the screen and second. Uh, can you see?
Yes,
It's
please.
coming up.
It's downloading.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, Amitava, would you like to take this forward, please?
Yes, so this is the cover, the spread out cover of the book, which is published by Om Books International, and Mr. Mago is here, and Shantanu who edited the book. And if you go to the next slide, So the foreword of the book. So we are just showing to the viewers, just showing some like look inside of sorts. So the foreword was written by Soumitra Chatterjee, which I got way back in 2018. I'm fortunate again that I got it from him because he is no more with us. And the table of contents, just so that you get an idea about what the book contains. We have his initial years, his growing up years, his new theaters days, moving to London and coming back, and then his filmic journey from Onkush, his first film, and his then the Tego stories, and his literary phase. So I'm not going into the table of contents like that. So you can see like what are the topics which have been covered, and then you can just show the next slide. Yes, these are the three different posters which I have kept just to give you an idea. These are the pictures which are also included. These are the photographs which are included in the book. Also, you can see like how different the posters look like in terms of the style and in terms of the color combination as well. And I think there are uh, two other slides on the. Yes, this is the left one is Tapan Singh with Arundhati Devi, his wife, an actress and director as well. And the one on the top is during Sagina Mahato's, I think this is the Sagina Mahato, yes,
Yes.
with Dilip Kumar and Sumita Shannal and Saurabh Dutta and others. The other one, the third one is with Satyajit Ray. Satyajit Ray happened to be a very close friend of Tapan Singh, and they exchanged a lot of things. Uh, and I have written a lot about their exchanges and how Tapan Singh looked at Satyajit Ray and how what was their working relationship like. So that is also part of the book's content. And I think the last slide is yes, these are about the awards. The left one is I think for Khudito Pashan. I think this one is from the Vice President Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan. The right on top is I think Shobuz Dipper Raja. This was from the President Sanjeeva Reddy. And I think the other one is again a felicitation of the last one is also felicitation from the governor of Bihar, Zakir Hussain. So, Zakir Khan, sorry, Zakir Hussain Khan. So there are other pictures because we spoke about the number of awards which he had got. So there are certain pictures. This is just a slideshow, 5 slides, so that you get to know like what you can expect if you are interested in looking up this book. Thank you.
Thank you.
So
It's a beautiful
Amitava,
book.
yeah, it's a very well produced book. The photographs and
Yes.
all make it add to the value, and I think every reader and lover of arts and Indian cinema should get a copy of it. Rounding off the discussion in the year 2021, like where would you place the relevance of a filmmaker like uh, uh, Tapan Sinha, like who never compromised on his integrity as a filmmaker and yet was a very commercially successful filmmaker? Box office hit after box office hit after box office hit, The- without sort of compromising on the basic integrity of, or letting go of a certain standard of filmmaking.
I think this this is a multi-layered question, but to cut it short, I think at one level, in today's content obese world, uh, he gave his films give a certain quality which I feel is missing in many of the contents which we see across the OTT platforms. So I think very important new filmmakers, you have to find out that you have to have quality content. You just cannot have whatever you want and whatever way you think. We have a lot of rubbish in terms of in the name of experimentation over the last 50 years. Sorry for saying this. So we can try to go back to some quality content without probably crossing the line every now and then and never in the line, within the line. So Tapan Singh, I think, draws a line and asks us to follow that. So we can do that. We can digress at times, but we can also see how linearly you can make films which communicate. The other one, which we didn't discuss at all, and we don't have time, I will just hint at one thing which I mentioned in the book as well, in couple of people's reference, that he had a very strict discipline in his work, and that is what which helped him to have all his films made within the budget. Filmmaking can go wayward very easily. I think Ajay will be agreeing. It can so happen with your publication industry as well. Like everywhere, whatever we do, if you don't have a plan which is proper and if you don't
Mm,
stick to the
mm,
plan, it can go haywire, right? So Tapan Sinha's films every time was within the budget, and at all whatever I have read people saying that he did it without pressurizing anyone. Everyone would finish the films within the time from 9 o'clock till 5 o'clock or whatever is the slot time. But he was always within the budget because he planned it. So I think, like the content, we also, all of us, need to curate our time better. One thing which we can take from Tapan Singh's cinema. There are no
You
Yeah.
have
excuses.
brought out that point very forcefully in your book, Amitava, that his discipline of work and thought. I think that reverberates in the book. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
let me
beautifully
tell
done.
you, let me add to what Amitava said. His time management was extraordinary on the floor. I've been to shooting places, and whatever planning he might have done earlier while script writing and telling the people, the boys, that what to do and what not to do, when he is coming for a shooting, he will not waste even a minute. And this is why, which is the core of Tapan Sinha's thinking, that he always told the people that it is an investor's money. He should get back. And so we cannot waste. That is myself being a management fellow, this is the core thinking of any business management. While you are involved in the artistic work, but you cannot waste the money, and the person should get back the money. This is one part. Second part you have just discussed. One thing you have missed, that in umpteen number of interviews he has said that he is a humanist. And this thinking that he is a humanist, so humane part in all his films you will find. There are two resolutions you will find, either the governance or spirituality in the whole process, and the suffering humanity comes to able to fight out and come back. So these are the core things which people liked and communicated as a humanist.
Thank you, Siddhartha. I think that's it. We have There are so many things I wanted to touch upon. His the way he handled. I don't think any other filmmaker has handled doctors in his films like he has.
Mm.
An aspect, but
mm,
I think we'll go on and on. So I am not very sure. Because I think at least 6 or 7 films and with really good doctor roles. I haven't seen
Yeah.
anybody handling doctors characters this well, but I think we can, with a filmmaker like him, we can go on and on. Antara, over to you. Siddhartha, thank you so much for your time.
thank
Amitav,
you so much.
and Ajay, thank you for
Before,
coming in. Like
Thank
Mentora.
you.
yes,
Thank you, sir.
absolutely.
I want
Shantanu,
to.
before we wind up, I would just like to take up a couple of comments, a few of the comments that have come in, since the audience has been very participative. So I'm just showing some of the comments here. Manik Premchand sir, he says, Mr. Ghosh is witness to those wonderful times. And Basava Sinha, he says, excellent observation by Amitav Nag about Tapan Sinha's trilogy and growth as a filmmaker. Um, Santosh Bakaya asks a question: what was Tapan Sinha's experience of working with Bollywood stars, particularly Dilip Kumar in Sagina Mahato? I
I
think
think
there's much about it in the book. Yes.
yes, I think you can find it in the book. I think we can skip it for the time, and it is in
Yeah.
the book, or we can go back later on in the
Yeah.
chat.
Madhumita Ghosh says, proud to be the granddaughter of late Tapan Sinha. So thank you, Madhumita ji. And there are a few others. Yeah, there is one question from Santosh Pakayash. He says, how would you compare the roles of Chobi Biswas and Balraj Sahni as Kabuliwala? Now, I think this is a very common question that comes up very often. So, but they are two different filmmakers here that are involved, and although the story is the same, and there is something else I wanted to. So, Lata Jagdiani says, obesity in experimentation indeed. I think your comments are catching on, Amita. So, very, very vibrant discussion. Thank you, everyone, for joining in. And thank you, Ajay ji. Thank you,
Thank you.
Siddhartha. Thank you, Amitav. Thank you, Shantanu. Very cerebral discussion this has been, and really loved every bit of it.
And guys,
And wish
please
you.
ask everybody to get the book, buy the book. This has to
Yeah,
be
it's available.
has to be read about, and uh, this is too important a director, and there's a lot to learn from his commitment to his work, from his discipline and dedication. And Amitava's book has brought it out very well.
And I
And
think
it will be
whatever we
available
discussed,
very
Let me
soon.
thank Ajay ji for this project which you have taken.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
whatever we
And-
discussed, I think more is there in the book which we have not discussed. So
Yeah, so they have to buy the
please
book.
Yes.
yes, please
Yes.
grab a copy of it. It is available over Amazon. It is available very freely
Yes.
over Amazon and other places, so you can just have a look at it.
Yeah, and soon it will be
And
in all the mostly bookstores across the country because the book just published. Online it's available now, and some bookstores also. But Calcutta it will be available hopefully in the next couple of days as well. Yeah,
Okay.
and
in the
I'm sure
bookstore.
this discussion will inspire people to watch the films,
Yeah,
because they have been part of my childhood and my growing up years, and they have been part of my psyche. So I've loved every one of them. So
great.
thank you, everyone,
Thank
for
you.
joining in,
Thank you.
and
Thank you. Have a
thanks
nice
again.
evening. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.